is usually temporary. Go live. Oh, okay, we're live. We're saying there is a problem with LinkedIn. I'm like, technology, I don't know what to do. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Three Coaches, One Topic, and One Coach in a Panic. Tonight, I am joined by the lovely Maxine and Wendy. And as always, we will start off with introducing ourselves, a little bit about what we do and where we are from. So I'll hand you over first to Maxine.
Well, hey, everybody. So nice to be here. Hey, Donna. Hey, Wendy. I'm excited for this. So what do? Oh, my gosh. I'm a life coach, a success coach, but I use the term best life advocate because it fits better with who I am and how I like to work with people. So, and my business is called Expectations Reset. So if that can kind of give you a clue of what I kind of focus in on. But I really work as a coach to help people kind of understand where they are, get some clarity on that so that they can take the next step forward. So I like to work with people who are kind of in transition from one kind of phase of life to another, or a big decision or something like that. And they've suddenly realized, oh, I don't feel well equipped to make this decision and make it well. And they're kind of ruminating and kind of going around in those circles. So I very much focus in on the whole body person, right? The brain, mind, body, just the whole nervous system, because that's what we are. That's our human suit, and it all gets affected by lots of different things, and we often don't know what those are. So for me, early on, perception of self became a big thing, but it's even bigger than that, isn't it, in the world when we navigate? It's not just the perception of who we are, but how do we perceive others? So hence NLP. Just wanted to say that's why I kind of went there, just to really get longer term transformative change for people, and really be able to help them make a difference in their lives, a meaningful one. So
that's great. Thank you, Wendy. Maxine, and you're calling in from
Florida. Yes, in the USA. It's 8 a.m. in the morning here, and sunny Florida is a little cooler than normal, but I have no right in mentioning it's cooler living in Florida.
Well, we're in Dubai, so we're okay.
Oh, wow. I'm originally from the UK as well, so this is where my heart still is. So you'll pick up on a different kind of language base as well. So.
That's great. Thank you so much for being here, Maxine. And Wendy, a regular to Three Coaches, One Topic.
Yes, so, in sunsetting Dubai, so the other end of the day for us. Okay, so trainer first, coach second. And I say that because I've been a trainer for lots of years. And then I discovered NLP and thought, oh, well, this is interesting. And then explored further and got into coaching sort of with the NLP skills. So I'm a trainer of NLP, timeline therapy, hypnosis, and embraining. Those are my favorite topics. So coaching, similar to Maxine, but I like to focus on the multiple brains, the head, which is very NLP based, the heart, and also the gut. So that's where the embraining kicks in as well. So yes, so I love all of it, and I coach coaches and I train trainers, and I do all of those sorts of things as well.
Maxine is very much the old grasshopper. There are people that are not born in the 70s or before the 70s, wouldn't know what the hell I'm talking about. But Maxine, I love to bounce off. Wendy, I love to bounce ideas off and go to you or my sounding board. So thank you for your introductions. And I'm Donna Burfield, and I'm a joy and purpose coach. I'm certified and accredited. And I'm actually just about to sit through another accreditation with the wonderful coaching minds for the EMCC. So I'm a parenting coach, and I also run Coaches Supporting Coaches here in Dubai. And that's very much a platform where we get together, practice our coaching skills, raise our standards, and fall in love with our profession so we can stand up and be proud of what we do. So that's basically me. We've just got let me just do this. We have somebody, Lawrence, here. Lawrence is saying hello to us all. Now, Lawrence, he's another fantastic coach that I've had the pleasure to know, and he is also saying it's 2 degrees where he is. So sorry to hear that, Lawrence. It's not here. So today's topic is about NLP, and what is it? Is it as powerful as it's made out to be? So I would love to know your thoughts, and we will start with you, Maxine, because you started on your journey here. So what's
my take on it?
Yeah.
Well, for me in coaching, oh gosh, I've been coaching now almost 3 years. It's flown. And I realized as I was going through my coaching practice that for me, I was not feeling I was getting to the long-term solutions and long-term change, long-lasting change for my clients. So I started looking around for additional ways that I could help them. Went to actually neuroscience and kind of did some training in that, and learned very much that we're battling our brains a lot of the time, and I had no idea. So it was fascinating to find that scientific side of it, and started applying some of that, but there were more gaps. So it kind of, I think we manifest what we need. It kind of came up on my radar that this may fill some of those gaps, NLP. And I will tell you that my coaching, even though I'm still in my training to become a practitioner, has changed. Because for me, the main part of NLP is the sensory acuity. Really honing in on the deep levels of how people communicate, how they actually exist in their world, and learning how to communicate better with them from their world, and then expand their world to include more choices for them. I know that sounds a bit woo-woo, but the power really is in fully communicating on all 5 levels of our senses, because we never don't communicate. We never don't. We're always communicating. And I just didn't feel that I was getting there. Clients are wonderful at kind of deviating, aren't they, with the red herring, the smoke screen, right? Being able to maneuver themselves unconsciously out of answering a question. And with NLP, for me, it's given me a better knowledge of how to actually get in there. Right? Powerful questions. And therein lies the power of NLP. It's not about the techniques necessarily. It's not about processes. It's all about really understanding the individual and their world within which they live and have created, their own personal paradigm.
Yeah, you make a really, really good point there, because although I have had no training at all to do with NLP, Wendy, you are the one that has really brought it to light for me, and you've always managed to make me go that little bit deeper. So, I mean, you are, I would say, an expert in this. So, can you share some of your thoughts?
Experience, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, there is some background noise going on, and I'm not sure where it's coming from. Yeah, it sounds like something's trapped in the speaker. Not sure what.
Somebody typing? No. Got a
No.
cat? Is there a cat around?
Okay, so Donna, you mentioned earlier about the 70s, and the 70s is when NLP first started. So if you think about, I'm always curious as to where do these things come from?
Yeah.
And so it started off with 2 guys, Richard Bandler, John Grinder, asking the question, how is it that some people are absolutely brilliant at what they do? And if we could work out how they do what they do, could we apply it to ourselves and get the same or similar results? And the answer is yes. So it's based on studying excellence. So modeling excellence and working out what their strategies are. So that fascinated me. And it was 2001 when I did my very, very first NLP training. It was a 6-day program. And I didn't know all this terminology stuff, but a lot of it made sense to me. It's like, well, yeah, I was kind of aware of that. And, I've been doing that for years, but I didn't know it was called that. So the terminology is really confusing. Even the name Neuro-Linguistic Programming is enough to turn anybody off. So, especially for me. So I like to kind of turn that upside down and it's like, what are we talking about here? So neuro is your brain, how we think. Linguistic is our language, so the words that we use. And programming is the programming of how we do what we do. Mm-hmm. So it's think, say, do. So once you work out that, okay, so it's all about communication, but it starts with exploring how you communicate with yourself. So, we've all got this little voice in our head, and it's either cheering us on or it's sabotaging us. Yeah. So if we could find out how to make that supportive to us, then is that going to help us be more successful? Absolutely. And there are ways of doing that with different techniques of NLP. So NLP is a whole lot, but it's basically communication techniques and putting them into different structures and different topics of how you can improve and also reprogram yourself. And when used in the context of coaching, how you can then use those tools to help other people reprogram themselves. So yeah, that's my long-winded short definition.
No, it's a perfect definition. And actually you bring it on beautifully because, I've had a couple of NLP sessions and we were talking about this just before we came on, and we thought it was important to share that. What is the difference between an NLP practitioner and somebody who coaching? Because I felt when I went through, I did a day with a lady who was fantastic. There were so many wonderful tools she used on me, which was great. But the one thing that got stuck in my throat was, and I'm now conscious of the language I'm using because it really did get stuck in my throat, was doing the timeline. And when we were doing the timeline, it was very therapy based. There's a lot of traumatic things that have happened to me in the past. And I have made my peace with them. I have accepted, I have moved on. And I felt quite pushed to do a role play, to revisit those things of what happened to me when I was 8, when I was 5, and all this lot. So yeah, my question here is regards to where is the line? Well, what's the boundaries and what should we look for so we don't mistakenly cross that barrier?
I think it's really defining what's the difference between coaching and therapy. So that NLP has got some tools that can be used to tidy up your past, so that would be considered therapy. But it's also got some really useful tools like meta-model questions, sensory acuity, building rapport, reframing, anchoring. There's lots of things that you can use from NLP in coaching, because coaching is working from now and out to the future. So Donna, you mentioned timeline. So timeline is this a process of either imaginary or pacing out your timeline. So you have now, you have the future, you have your past. So timeline in coaching would be great for goal setting and just taking steps forward, because that's pure coaching, because it's moving you forwards. If it's tidying up the past, that's therapy.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things I found really valuable from NLP is that a lot of clients during coaching, they discover what's stopping them from moving forward is a negative experience or a limiting belief from their past, or negative emotions that pop up. So there are some NLP techniques that can deal with that, but that's not coaching. And I think it's important to, first of all, find a coach and I know you're hot on your credentialing, and find out who they've trained with, what are they trained in. And also, I'm in my client's agreement, I specified what I'm trained in. And I always say that I will not use timeline therapy or hypnosis without their consent. I'm not going to do it, just go into it. It's, okay, that's something that we could explore in the next session. I take off my coaching hat, put on my therapy hat, and we can work on that in a different context. Tidy up the past, and then we can, as a separate session, and then we can come back and move forward with the coaching. So, yeah.
But that, again, that comes from the coach being an ethical coach with regards to communicating that with, and please don't think I'm saying that this coach that I did have wasn't ethical. She was. I just felt
challenged by it. Yes, it was difficult.
Yeah, I felt obligated to play along, and I really didn't. But there again, I wasn't being assertive enough. So obviously that was quite a few years ago, because now I'd be going, hell no. I'm happy. So I'm moving on, not revisiting.
Just out of interest though, so one of the key things in NLP, and Wendy, jump in, one of the key things that I'm learning is when you're actually going through anything in coaching, to include any NLP technique, tool, whatever you may be using, you've got to have an outcome. You've got to have a purpose for doing it. You've got to have a real clear purpose behind the tools that you're using, and they're always to the benefit of the client. So what concerns me is that perhaps back then, when you went through this, that outcome and the purpose for what the process you were taking through was not actually identified to you or discussed with you before it took place. So it's key that every coach is very clear on the intent and the outcome that they're working towards for the client. Now, some things pop up along, right, as you go along, and you follow the client, but the overall outcome of what you're doing should still be there. And if it's not, or if it's lost, you have to stop and you have to re-engage and figure out, well, what's the most meaningful for the client. So yeah, client number one, all of the while, we in coaching lead the client, but with that outcome purpose, right? Why are they there? What do they need? How are we serving them? Not us. It has nothing to do with us. Just because we're an NLP technique doesn't mean we throw it in there. It's about the client. But I do have one question for Wendy, because this occurred to me, and I got to get it out there before I forget, because this is me. Timeline therapy. There is one timeline that I found useful, and I'd love your opinion on this one. The resourceful timeline, where you can actually work with a client to go backwards in challenging situations. They've got a challenge. Use one that comes up often. They've got to give a presentation, and there's certain things they're worried about. There's certain things that they don't feel wholly confident because there's things missing. They feel that they're not ready. Their words. And the timeline, resourceful timeline, can actually take them back through similar experiences where they felt kind of the same, but they can reflect back and look and think, well, actually, I was successful because I tapped into this, and I did this in the past, and I did that in the past. And in that kind of a timeline, when it's skillfully done, and it doesn't have to be in a line, it can be random all over the place, you can help that individual pull those resources into the present state and remember that, oh, yeah, I've got experience of this. I've done this before. It felt the same, but you know something? I do have the resources that I need. And now they're in my mind. I can use them for the challenge that I have ahead. So I like that one. I don't feel it's as therapeutic. And I would love your take on
I'd say it really depends on the school of timeline therapy that you're learning. In one of my early NLP experiences, I walked the timeline, and I had absolutely amazing results, but it associates you into your problem. And the dangers there is that if you don't clear it, if you don't sort of do it thoroughly, you can drag that into the current and to associate into now. So you can explore your past, but if you walk the timeline, and there are different techniques. So I trained with Tad James, who founded Timeline Therapy, and The Basis of Personality, great book. And with him, it's an imaginary process. So, and it really focuses on tidying up the 5 negative emotions: anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt. Also releasing limiting decisions that have been made. So you decide to believe something, so releasing that. And then making sure you're okay in the now. And then a lot of work into popping goals into your future timeline. So creating a compelling future. So that I don't consider timeline to be pure NLP. It's an add-on that there are different methods, there are different ways, different schools. So say that NLP is really coming back to the success strategies.
Yes.
So yeah, that would be my definition. Timeline therapy is fascinating and used well, and never sort of leave your client or bring back to now without tidying up. You don't do that. It's all about keeping the client safe and pacing their experience, creating a positive anchor. If they associate into something, you need to dissociate them quite easily, quickly.
And that's a skill as well, because then if you're going to do a negative anchor and it's, in your daily life, say it could be touching your right shoulder,
you need to set that up first.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people with good intentions jump on and do these NLP courses on Udemy. And I'm not saying, we mentioned Udemy a few times, and I don't want to put it down because there are some fantastic resources as additional support. And but I find that I have come across a lot of people who have done the $25, the $100 NLP. All of a sudden they're, some expert. And to do things like that anchoring, that is such a powerful tool that they could be causing so much harm. And then the coach or practitioner or whatever, well, they're not, but the person delivering this can't help them moving forward.
Yeah. I remember I worked with lots of clients using timeline therapy, and I had one client, oh bless her, she just went down, associated straight into a very negative experience, started screaming. I fell off my stool and thinking, oh crap, what am I going to do now? Literally, I have the process and script form that's on the table over there, and I grabbed her by the elbow and I'm marching her up and down my kitchen, and I'm just telling her what to do and what does she need to learn to let that go and what else, and get above her timeline. And it was just like, oh, I've got to keep going until she gets the learnings. And then of course you have to manage your own state. So yeah, she got so many learnings from that. And I got her back into her seat, and I came back. It's like, oh, okay. And then I have to calm myself down before I bring her back into now. And then I just treat it as, she sort of said, oh, I said, don't worry, it happens all the time. In NLP, one of the presuppositions is acting as if. If you haven't got the experience, you act as if it's totally normal. Because I can't let her know that I'm freaked out. So I really had to manage my own state, my own response ability, and just, reassure her. But most importantly, when you test and future pace, which is a big thing in NLP, test that, that problem is no longer a problem, or that emotion is no longer there. And future pace, how it's going to be different now she's let that go, and how she can apply those learnings in the future. I mean, she was glowing, absolutely glowing.
Yeah.
So
that double-edged sword I was talking about, right? You can actually really help a client kind of go through some of this stuff, and even not to the depth that you've just talked about. But you can leave yourself really quite unsettled if you've not recognized that you have now the need to cleanse and get yourself into the present state and then to the future state. And it happened to me. I'm going to tell you, it's happened to me. And it took deliberate action, 3 days for me to realize what was going on, and then to deliberately do something about it, which felt very uncomfortable to actually do it, because I felt I failed, right? There was the failure thing. But we bring ourselves as coaches, right? Regardless of what we're doing with the person. So we bring something into the room. We're communicating too. We bring whatever issue we may be just left outside that door, whatever it could be, we bring that in. So that self-awareness and the ability to actually change our own emotional state needs to be so well practiced. And hard. It can be very hard. So some of these people, back to your point, Donna, they've jumped onto these courses. They've learned the techniques and tools. They've got a script in front of them, but they've not practiced what NLP is really all about, which is sensory acuity and figuring out how people are navigating their lives, how they are constructing their own personal world, what it looks like to them, and really getting good at second positioning and third positioning walking into their shoes and actually truly understanding where they are and why they might be feeling the way they are without bringing yourself.
And it's so important that people do that research and not to jump on when everybody can promise, I can promise this. You need that trust, you need that rapport, you need that professionalism. I don't want to hire a coach who's going to be my best friend. I want somebody who is going to be that professional. Do I want a friendly manner and somebody who's got a sense of humor and somebody who's inspiring and motivating? Yes, of course I do. But I don't want a best friend. I'm definitely not going to pay for a best friend.
You've got
that
lots
looks a bit sad.
Donna. You don't need them.
No, but an interesting point. It's funny because, right, there are, I would say 90% or 85%, I've just dropped quite quickly, of what Tony Robbins does, I am behind 100%. I love his passion and how he tries to help people and empower them. But there's this one thing that he did do that really triggered me. And it was, I can't remember what seminar it was. It could be UPW. It could have been something else. I can't remember. And he got people to face each other and say, I own you. All right. So, all right. I don't know. I won't swear, but I thought, what the absolutely hell's bells? No way am I ever going to give somebody that power to tell me, for me to admit, you own me. Now, I had to walk away from that because I was really triggered.
What was the purpose of it?
Well, the context was, it was about being in a relationship. And by saying I own you, this means it's my responsibility to do and look after you and put you first. I understand that. And I do appreciate I can't get past the words I own you. Because of what's happened to me in the past.
Big, yeah.
And for me then, I was thinking, and I would love to hear your take on this. Whilst I'm an adult and I've done a lot of coaching and a lot of personal development, I can then compartmentalize certain responses and say, okay, somebody else hearing that won't.
Exactly. Yeah.
And to hand over that yes, you own me. I'm sorry, I still think, what the fuck? I mean, like, no.
Okay, Donna, I can. Right, I have examples for you. In NLP, when we unpack the linguistics of NLP, the meta model question technique which uncovers more information, the deeper level structure. So the words that come out of our mouths are just surface. We want to get down to the deeper level. What do those words mean to that individual in this context? So normalizations, a relationship does not exist. So because it's not a thing, it's not tangible. So we need to denominalize that. So change, if the relationship isn't working, it's not a bad relationship. It's bad relating. So how am I relating in the relationship? So bring it back into a verb because it's doing.
Yes.
So this is what I love about NLP. And heads up, NLP, we don't ask why. Well, on the practitioner course, I think we ask why twice, and master practitioner three or four times. But we don't ask why.
No, I'm joking, sorry.
Because when you ask why, you get all of that narrative, all of the reasons, all the story, the content, all the reasons why this is a problem and how you've created this problem and how this problem is being a problem and how it plays out being a problem. So you just get a lot of content. There are some techniques in NLP, you don't need content. You can go content free. So it's more the process and structure.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So heads up here, I think we mentioned this earlier. NLP can be used in brilliant ways and can also, some people say, well, isn't it fluffy? Isn't it manipulative? Isn't it? Yes, it can be all of those things. NLP is a set of tools in a coach's toolbox. If you pull out a hammer can be used for positive things. You need to put a pretty picture up on the wall. I'll use my hammer. You can also use a hammer as a weapon. So you just need to be careful how you use it. And what I loved about NLP is digging down deeper and exploring values, because it's our values and the meta programs of our deep level drivers. What motivates us? What drives our behavior? So NLP with somebody with good values and wanting to help people can be super powerful, but it can be used in other ways and be used as manipulation. So
exactly.
It depends on the user.
Exactly. Thank you, Lawrence. Here.
Comment. Yeah, we won't repeat it. Yes. No, yeah, absolutely. Right, Wendy, I do jump on board. One of the things I always do with my clients is ground them first in really understanding who they are. So it is about their values and their drivers, and understanding a little bit about not necessarily where that came from, but a little bit of extra awareness as to who they are, because without those, they can't build their boundaries, right? So it's important, even in coaching, and me coaching a person, is that they understand they have boundaries.
Yeah.
And they are.
What amazes me is environment, because we talk about environment and the neurological levels. Our programming, everything comes back to the environment that we grew up in. So if you're coming from a fun, loving, caring family, you have very different values from coming from a struggling family. Environment is everything. Something that I discovered a few years ago was talking to a friend of mine who lives in Lebanon. I've zero experience growing up in war. I mean, I grew up in the countryside. And I couldn't understand. So she has a very different model of the world to me, because that impacts absolutely everything. Yeah. So the more you become aware and consider, and this really helps me as a coach, because it's never about me. As a friend, we want to jump in and give advice and, oh yeah, that happened to me, and what you need to do is this, this, and this. That's never the solution, because as a coach, using sensory acuity, using rapport, using questioning techniques, holding that space and just helping them explore, and then going into meta. What could they do? What's going to help them move forward, find their solution? There is no fixed solution. There's no, I've heard NLP be described as discovering the user manual for your mind.
Oh God.
Every single user manual is going to be different because you have to take it back into the context of the environment and the experience that you grew up in.
Yeah.
But that's nice for you if you adapt it to you. If you are strong enough and you have to go through a process to go there, that you say, okay, this is my user manual for me.
Yes. Yeah.
This doesn't belong to you, Maxine. This doesn't belong to you, Wendy. Yeah. This is my blueprint, which is very personal.
Different meanings to different people. Yeah. And if their values are different as well, even if you're in the same family, you know, my brother and I don't have the same beliefs as him. I don't have all the same values as him. Yeah. But we grew up in the same environment. But he's 2 years older. So that has an impact on his experiences. So, yeah.
So is it the same environment then, Wendy?
Well, it's not just the environment, is
it?
The
home environment, the same family environment, but at different ages, it's a different experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have different filters, Wendy. I mean, I don't know about you, but obviously our experiences are literally all recalled via our 5 senses. And we remember them that way, or we can imagine things that way, right? They're always sensory. So for me, my primary sensory thing, and I've just learned this, so I want to share it, is that I'm very kinetic. Go figure. I'm hands and very language is all about movement and the feel, right? It's all about that. Some people are very visual. So for me, well, those are our filters. That's how we see our life. That's how we construct our life. That is our internal world map. And
that's how we experience it. Yeah.
As that map, right? So NLP actually gives us tools and methodology and an approach and an attitude where we can actually recognize what somebody else's world map may look like and what they're using and have used to create that world. So we can introduce different things that may help them at different levels to expand what that looks like, what it feels like, but more importantly, the choices that they have. Because in creating that world and reinforcing the filters that they have, they've limited their choices.
Exactly.
So NLP is all about expanding their choices, but being aware of the choices as well that they have and making a choice. So that's the beauty of it for me. It just allows somebody a little bit extra, I call it wiggle room, right? We all get bogged down with certain things we believe about ourselves, about the world, about many, many different things. And we've acquired them over time and they're hardwired in us often. So to actually introduce a way for somebody to see those things, blind spots, you've heard that many times.
Question themselves, what if that's not true? What if I wasn't to believe that? What would happen then?
To believe what?
Whatever.
Sorry, yes. Sorry, yeah.
It's that curiosity. It's about getting that curiosity about what makes me tick.
Yes.
And when I'm doing something that I'm really enjoying and I'm doing really well, what am I doing then that if I applied to things that I found more challenging, would that help me do better? Yeah.
Isn't that wonderful?
Absolutely.
So what would you two advise for somebody out there who's going, okay, and I think we need to make it clear that anybody that does any form of training for coaching, NLP, CBT, anything like that, these tools and strategies can be extremely powerful, and it is quite easy to manipulate someone, once you know.
Yes.
So, excuse me. What would be some of your suggestions for people to look out for, or questions to ask to make sure they're having an ethical NLP practitioner stroke coach?
First of all, what level are they? Who have they learned with? There are different schools of NLP. There's plenty of them out there. But who has that person learned with? I mean, I trained with Tad James because he was the founder of timeline therapy. I wanted to learn from the horse's mouth. So, there are sometimes you just think, oh yeah, that's the way I want to go. So what level are they? What amount of learning have they done? So that's a good way of checking out, because you can have an NLP certification from doing some online sessions sort of once a week for 4 weeks, I don't know. But you don't get the same level of how many hours of study have they done. I know for me to be a trainer, I had a 7-hour closed book test. So I had to answer these questions knowing the knowledge in my head. I wasn't allowed to reference anything. So, but also what other tools do they have? And what context do they use it in? Because you can have an NLP master practitioner who doesn't put it into coaching. So that's not where they want to focus. So if you're looking for coaching, you want somebody who has, who focuses in that area. But it's always, you want to meet them. You want to get a sense of, can I work with this person? What are they like? Tell me about, if I was thinking about working with Maxine, I'd want to book her for a discovery call and ask her some questions. So tell me, Maxine, how long have you been coaching? How did you get into coaching? What training do you have? How do you coach? So do you have a client agreement? Can I have a read through it and come back to you with any questions? So you need to be recruiting a coach that you work with to make sure it's the right one for you. Because, there's different levels out there. Different levels.
It really is. Yeah, there's a lot of people who claim that they're practiced at this and they're not. It's not just processes. It's a whole holistic approach to life, I believe, NLP.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You got to incorporate it into your life as a human before you can ever introduce it, I believe, into coaching, for example. But yes.
I like to ask other people. So I checked out LinkedIn a lot. What recommendations have they had? I've had people sort of come to me and they're not sure. And I said, well, would you like to speak to a couple of people that I've worked with previously in this area? So if they're working on something specific, I always want to know, what are your objectives for coaching and how will you know the coaching has worked? Because that's their convincer strategy. Because if they don't know that the coaching has worked, that's going to reflect on me.
Good point.
There's a lot of people though come and they don't always know what they want, and that's part of coaching as well, is to actually get to the bottom of what they want.
So the objective would be to get some clarity on what they want.
So then they would know what they want.
Right.
So then
you can actually go on the journey with them. But NLP, I mean, it's a lot for people who haven't been introduced to it to get their heads around. But it is all about, and I'm going to go there again, and Donna, she's probably going to love me for it. It's all about the ethical practice of it and making sure that you are always serving the client and not yourself. So if I was to come to somebody as a coach, yes, they're going to have to court me. I'm going to spend time with them. And it's not just going to be once. I'll probably come back a couple of times before I decide that this is the person I want to work with based on the outcome that I am looking for, right? So it's rapport, first and foremost, always is, trust, right? Though that's coaching regardless of NLP. But if I'm going for an NLP type coach, that foundation better be darn solid before they jump into any NLP process with me, because they need to know me. And that doesn't happen in a couple of sessions. You don't establish trust, not with me anyway, in a couple of sessions. So yes, be prepared to sift out those coaches who are willing to actually spend some time with you, because their reputation is also on the line. They want the best for you, but they want to make sure that you are coachable in a manner that they like to coach. So it's a two-way agreement, isn't it? It's a win-win on both sides. And that takes time. Time.
I know with me, when I want to work with a coach, I want to find somebody that has experience in different areas than me, because I don't want to be thinking about what techniques they're using or their approach. There's got to be a deep level of trust, and I need to know that they are going to push me to a different level.
Yes.
They're going to push my buttons, and they're going to pull me up on my excuses. This is why my self-coaching doesn't work, because I'm human. I'm human. So yeah, when I'm choosing a coach, they have to meet my criteria.
Yeah.
So a good consideration is, what kind of person do I need to push me to the next level, or to where I want to go?
Yeah.
And I think coming back to the 3 requisites for change, number 1 is to know what you want and focus on it. Number 2 is to take action, do something. And number 3 is the feedback and flexibility. So the feedback is notice what changes you've made, and also the flexibility to do something different if it's not working.
And a coach that can push you on all of those 3 levels, right? And actually get you there to
Well, you've got to. You're paying
exactly
a lot of money, which for people that are ethical and legal, there is a reason, because it's frigging expensive. You get your business license, you're paying for all these things, and your continued development and all the rest of it. So for those ethical and professional coaches, there is a price tag. But what I'm interested in, what are some of the red flags? So if you have done a discovery call with a NLP practitioner or a coach or what have you, what are some of the things that you go,
Credentials, always, Wendy, don't you think? I mean, you've got who are they accredited by? Not just certified, because like says certificate can really come from any source, but are they accredited as well, and a member of a global body that actually monitors what you're doing, and you have to check in with them that you're compliant with what is required of you to coach in this manner. And also, what would I say? Yeah, look at their body of work. Are they a reputable resource? Where can you find that information? There's lots of things. Do your research. Potentially the FBI on your behalf.
Well, check their websites and stuff, because if they don't have terms and conditions or privacy policies on there and so forth, why not?
Refund policies. That's a great indicator as to whether this person feels competent, knows that, and feels competent enough to put out a refund policy. In other words, I am confident that I can do what we say we're going to do together, and if at any point you feel that I'm not serving you in the manner we talked about, there has
to be conditions there, because there are a lot of people out there that will screw you over and will do 8 sessions out of 10 and turn around and say this, that, and the other, then expect a full refund. So again, it's about getting that contracting done, and make sure your contract is viewed by a lawyer. Again, it's expensive for us as coaches to do that. And this is part of the reasons why sometimes our fees have to go up or what have you. It's because we do things lawfully and ethically for protection for the client and for protection for us as well.
Yes.
So Wendy, what are some of your...
For me, if you're looking to work with an NLP coach, everything that you've already mentioned, Maxine, and trust your gut. You know deep down when something doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
So check in with your gut. You know, do you feel comfortable with them? Do you feel they are the right person for you?
Yeah. And don't feel guilty if you do listen to your gut and that person does come across on a different relationship, on a different level. You might become friends, and that's great. Yeah. However, whilst you may have that nice gut feeling, if things don't transpire on a business contractual relationship, this is where, as a client, you have to take some responsibility and do your research and ask those questions. And as Maxine said, do a little bit of FBI work. and get on their website.
It also links back to what is it that you want to achieve from coaching. So if you want to be coached on building your confidence in your presenting skills, it's very different if you want to be coached on, I don't know, doing something that scares the crap out of you because you've got negative emotions attached to it. You know, it's what's your purpose for coaching?
Yeah, but can I then interject here and say that you may go to a coach or to an NLP practitioner with that in mind, and then you realize it's because you've had a narcissistic, I don't know what have you in the past, or you have this unlimiting belief, which is, you know, manifesting itself in a relationship or what have you. So this is, again, why you have to be careful of who you do choose, and that they do have the appropriate skills and knowledge, because what you think you are turning up for might not necessarily be what you need.
Yeah. And I think that's what I love about having NLP, timeline therapy, hypnosis, embraining, my coach's toolbox. I've done so many different coaching programs and skills. I have a lot of tools in my toolbox. So am I equipped to help a client, whatever comes up, am I equipped to help them get into a safe space and decide if this is something that I can help them with, if it's outside of my scope? I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a medical practitioner. You know, I'm not so many things. But if I need to get them to a safe space in the now and then help them work how they're going to move forward. So if there is change techniques, and NLP has a lot of change techniques, that's not coaching. But there might be a change technique that could help them get into a more positive space. So maybe timeline therapy could help them. But then I have to talk them through what timeline therapy is and how it's going to work.
Identify it, let them choose. Yeah, whether they go down. You have to invite them. You can't introduce it. So this is something I've thought of, and Wendy, tell me if you see this as well. One thing I've noticed about coaches who use NLP when it's appropriate is if you are approaching a coach like that, they will seldom chase you or pester you to take on their services. They're much less likely than somebody who's, not been practicing very long, has a limited certification, really hasn't kind of done the deep work in NLP. They may chase you and use some of the NLP techniques to actually get you to sign on with them. But I've seen that NLPers, practitioners, ones who are certified and a little bit knowledge, know that that's the power that they have, and they won't use it to actually attract you in and pester you to use their services.
We're in the wrong circles there. Well, we're not in the same circles because I've seen way too many triggers.
Oh my gosh. Well, okay, so maybe that's something manifesting for me, because I will not chase a client. I will entreat them. I may try and entice them with information and resources, but that's it. I'm not pestering them. I'm not going to chase them. If they want to come and use me, then that's wonderful.
It's all about ethical. It depends on the integrity and the ethical intentions of that professional. And there's so many that will try. They will say, I've got NLP, I've got the timeline, I can cure you, I can save you, I can do this, I can do that, but without a conversation beforehand. So this is why it's really important for, anybody who comes on to Three Coaches, One Topic, has a business license or is employed by another company to coach or to train NLP and so forth. And they are certified, accredited to a good level.
And supervised.
Yes, and we continuously end up having discussions.
I think NLP's had a bit of a bad rap, because when I first started coaching way back to end of 2006, so back in those days, ICF, the International Coach Federation, would not recognize NLP at all, because they always positioned it saying, no, it's change techniques. So because NLP is a blend and so many techniques, I think they're now accepting it, and they're now even promoting NLP programs through ICF, which is, I think, progress. But there does need to be a lot more clarity on what is coaching and what is change. What space are you working in, and that can impact your scope. So what areas you should be working with. But as Donna, as you said, you don't know what's going to come up until it's come up. I mean, look at that client I worked with. Boy, did I earn my coaching rate that day? It was like, it was a lot of self-control. It was a lot of, wow, amazing. I knew she had made so many massive shifts, and she literally floated away at the end of the session. She said, oh, fantastic, great. I felt exhausted.
Exactly. To learn how powerful it is as a coach is to have somebody to practice some, and you got to be ready for this and accepting of it. Have a very skilled practitioner actually walk you through the process that you want to learn to be able to use. Because if there's one thing that will actually hit home is how powerful it is, and what's going to come up will be totally unknown, and you have to have the ability to what I call duck and dive, right? You've got to be able to pivot very quickly as a coach, as a practitioner, to be able to meet it where it's being met. Have somebody do the process on you, and then decide, because it will hit home as to how you're going to practice this. And you will realize that you want to be damn good at it and have experimented and practiced in very safe environments before you take it out there into real life.
Yeah, and there's always going to be circumstances that you're not ready for. I mean, everybody's unique, and that's the whole thing to remember, is that every single client that you have is unique, and they don't fit in a cookie cutter. Just before, we are going to have to wrap up, ladies, although I know we could chin wag for much longer.
We didn't cover all the presuppositions, did we, Wendy?
I'm sure we can do another one at a later date. Don't worry. But before we go, Wendy, you have got something coming up in a couple of days, or next week?
Yeah, in February. Yeah, February. I'm partnering with the International Institute of Research and Human Development and bringing the NLP programs, their version. And the reason I love them so much is that the research has got into looking at all of the schools of NLP, bringing it back to what is the real essence of NLP. And we're doing a 4-day essentials program, so like NLP for business, and then the practitioner program, and eventually we will get to the master practitioner program. So I will put, Donna, you can put a link into the comments once we wrap this up, because there's a special coaches supporting coaches rate.
Oh, fantastic. So what I'll do is I'll put it on all the previous posts in the comment, but all new posts to do with today's session episode, I will include as well. And hold on a second, just before we go, somebody has left a comment to say, yes. Thank you, Nidhi. I'm glad you enjoyed it. We enjoyed talking, as you can tell. But yes, so just before we go, I would just like to thank you both so very, very much. Maxine, I've known you from the beginning of my coaching journey, and like with Liz last week, and we've got Kelly coming on next week. We started off together at the Jay Shetty Certification School and have grown tremendously since then. So that was a great platform to start from. And Wendy, as always, I am so appreciative of being in your company. You make me laugh, you make me think. And you haven't made me cry yet, but let's not go there.
You haven't been a client yet.
Oh,
I'm not going back. I've accepted everything. I'm happy to move on.
you're missing some good stuff though, Donna, you are.
We always have a good old chin wag. So just before we go, thank you very, very much, everybody, for tuning in. And I will put the information that Wendy was talking about in the comments section. If you have any questions, please reach out and we will answer them for you. So thank you very much and have a great evening.